is Cadence Luciano, and I'm going to be teaching a little bit about baking today. So we're going to be making some chocolate chip cookies. So let's get started. So the first thing you want to do when you find a recipe you want to make is go through both the ingredients and the instructions, so you know what you're going to need and what you're going to have to do, so nothing's a surprise. So let's take a quick look through the instructions, and we'll get back to the ingredients in a second. Okay, so it looks like we're going to be preheating the oven and preparing the pans, then combining all the dry ingredients, and then separately creaming together the butter and the sugar, adding the eggs, mixing back in the dry ingredients, and adding the chocolate chips, rolling the balls of dough, putting them in the oven for 8 to 10 minutes, taking them out just when they barely start to turn brown, then letting them sit on the pan before removing them to a cooling rack. So let's take a look at the ingredients. It's important to take a look at that before you get started so you make sure you have everything in the right amounts. So these are all of the ingredients that we're going to need. And if we move over here, we have set out everything so we know for a fact that we have everything in the right amounts. And if you actually take a closer look, this recipe calls for both baking soda and baking powder. And it's really important that you make sure that those two ingredients are still active. Even if they're within their expiration date, they may still not be active. Okay, so now we're actually going to test the baking soda and the baking powder. And again, it's super important because if they're not active, then they don't do what they're supposed to do within the recipe. So I'm actually going to have you do this. It's super easy and you see the reaction pretty much instantly, so we'll know right away. Okay, so let's do the baking soda first. So we're going to combine half a cup of hot water with a 1/4 teaspoon of vinegar. So you can take this half a cup right here and come over to the sink. Add that right into there. And then we're going to take our vinegar and add a 1/4 teaspoon of that. Perfect. Then you can kind of mix it up. Alright. And then with a different 1/4 teaspoon, since that one's wet, we're going to take our baking soda and kind of dump a heaping 1/4 teaspoon into there. And we should see some sort of like bubbles or fizzing. And you can see like a couple bubbles, so we know that our baking soda is active. So that's good, so we can use that.
Very cool.
So now we're going to test the baking powder. So for this one, we are going to need a half cup of hot water again, and then a half teaspoon of baking powder.
So why don't we need the vinegar?
That's a very good question. So the reason that we don't need the vinegar for this one is because the baking soda needs an acid to react, so that's what the vinegar does in that reaction. However, the baking powder already has an acid within it, so it doesn't need another acid in order to react. So we just need the water.
Okay, great. Oh yeah, and you can hear it too.
Yep, so right away you hear the fizzing and the bubbling, so we know again that that one's active, so we are good to go. So let's move on. So now that we know that those two ingredients are active, let's take another look at our ingredients. If you look at the butter, it specifies that it needs to be softened, and a lot of people might disregard that, put in cold butter, or melt it too much in the microwave, and that can alter the texture of your cookie. So you really want to make sure that it is softened. So we're going to use a couple of fun and easy ways to soften butter. So if we move over here, so the first way, you can leave the wrap around for this first one. So we're going to put the butter into a Ziploc. And then we're going to get some warm water in this bowl. And then you're just going to plop the butter right in there.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah, and then in like 4 to 5 minutes, it should be pretty soft, and you can kind of feel that it's soft once, you know, the time is up. So yeah, we just place that in there. Easy enough. And then the second way is a little bit more fun. So what we're going to do for this one is we're going to take off the wrapper for this butter, and we're going to sandwich it between 2 pieces of parchment paper. And then here comes the fun part. We're just going to hit the butter with the rolling pin until it's like 1/2 inch or 1/4 of an inch thick. So it kind of softens up because it's so thin. So you can go ahead and have at it. But it's really important with baking that our oven is preheated, especially when we have baking soda and baking powder, because they react with heat. So if it's the wrong temperature, they might not have, you know, the right reaction. So yeah, it's really important that we make sure the oven is preheated. Sorry, we're gonna start with the flour. So you can take the measuring cup and spoon it into the measuring cup. We need 3 cups of that, so you can go ahead and get started on that. So yeah.
Can we not just like dunk it in with the measuring cup?
Yeah, actually a lot of people want to do that because it's quicker and easier, but that can actually cause the flour to be packed in there and can result in super dense cookies, so nobody wants that, you know? So you can scoop it in there and then take the knife and just level it across. And the easiest way to do it actually is if you flip the knife upside down and then level it off like that. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Mm-hmm. So the next thing we're going to do is deal with our butter and sugar. So we already put our softened butter in there. So the next thing we're going to do is dump in both our white sugar and our brown sugar. So you can go ahead and throw in the white sugar that was already measured. The next thing we're going to add is the brown sugar. So we need a cup of that, so you can go and scoop it out of there. And brown sugar, it needs to be packed into the measuring cup. It's kind of like the opposite of flour. You can use your hand because, of course, we washed our hands, so it's sanitary. You can pack it in there. Yeah, nice. And, yeah, that's good. And when you dump it in here, it should actually hold the shape of the measuring cup. That's how packed it is. Also, what's important is that you use a spatula and scrape down the edges so you get everything incorporated. See, there's still some butter there, so you want to get everything down in there. For the eggs, you want to make sure that you crack them in a separate bowl first, in case you get like shell or like the egg is gross. So you can go ahead and crack those in that little bowl right there. So we're gonna do it just bit by bit, just because it could like overwhelm the mixer or it could cause like a powder explosion. So you can start kind of like dumping it in little by little. Says between 8 and 10 minutes, and it's strongly suggested to not overbake them, so we're going to put them in on the lower side. So let's do 8 minutes. Alright, 8 minutes are up, and it says take them out when they're just barely turning brown. So it looks like they're just barely turning brown. So we're going to place that over here, and it says to let them sit for 2 minutes before we take them off and put them on the cooling rack. So there you have it, chocolate chip cookies. That's how you do it. So thank you to Melissa, our student, the man behind the camera, Nick, and of course to our trusty friend, Louie. And thank you to you all for watching.